Thank you all for joining today. So today we'll be discussing, I'm going to introduce myself in a minute, but thank you all for joining the session. Today we'll be discussing unlocking the potential of CRM marketing for African businesses. My name is Bemi, and we have a very special guest that I'm going to introduce very shortly to have this wonderful conversation around CRM marketing. But for those of you that are new here, first of all, for everyone that's in the audience, we want to encourage you to introduce yourselves in the chat section. Just tell us who you are and where you're joining from, just so that we know where people are joining us from today. Also, we encourage you to stay in touch. We build a community around the work we're doing. So if you're able to stay in touch, I think that'll be great and wonderful. But going back to the agenda for today, for those of you that are new here, this is the Africa MarCom Series, and the idea for this series is to have conversations with various thought leaders from around marketing, various marketing and communication disciplines, and talking to them about how we can navigate the evolving African business landscape in the context of the work we do. So we've had previous sessions about storytelling, about events planning, and various conversations. Today we're talking about CRM marketing, and then in the future we have sessions planned around SEO, growth marketing, B2B comms, and a range of other topics. So yeah, stay tuned. Today promises to be a great conversation, so I'm really looking forward to it. I've had various chats with Raimah. I'm going to introduce her shortly. But before we start as well, I think in case you're wondering who the hell is this guy, my name, like I said, is Bemi. I run a company called Talking Drum Communications. I've been working in PR and comms for about 15 years now, working with a range of international companies, Africa-focused companies, companies across the board. And I run this series with the wonderful Joanna Still, who is a digital marketing consultant and trainer. I've been working in this space for over 20 years, working with a wide range of international companies and Africa-focused companies as well. We thought we'd put this series together really to kind of have various conversations about topics that are important to marketing and comms professionals. And today's session in particular, who's this for, in case you're wondering, it's for anyone that business owners, entrepreneurs, marketing and comms professionals, business development professionals, and anyone that has any kind of interface with consumers, anyone that has any kind of interface with anyone that's out there trying to sell products and services to consumers. I'll let Raimah kind of expand on that a little bit more. And I've had a sneak peek at the presentation, and in terms of what you can expect to learn, we're looking at the core elements of CRM, and looking at how to sort of collect, analyze, and utilize customer data to make informed marketing decisions, and lots of different things around implementing effective CRM strategies in an African context. I'm going to hand over to Raimah in a second to kind of talk us through. She has a very short presentation she's going to talk us through. But before we get started, just a bit of context about her. Raimah's a very busy lady, and you still understand why I say that. So she's the Chief Marketing Officer of Menufinder Africa, a Ghana-based startup, and she also spearheads the AI and data projects for a UK tech consultancy called ANS. So juggling two jobs at once. So it's definitely keeping busy. She has over 10 years experience in managing marketing projects, worked with the likes of McDonald's, Microsoft, the GSMA, and other organizations. And we're really excited to have Raimah here today to talk to us about CRM marketing. So I'm going to hand over to Raimah at this point to kind of talk us through her presentation, and then we'll come back for some questions later on. One thing I'll say before I get started, actually, before I hand over, Raimah's going to go through a presentation, and we're going to have a session for questions at the end. But if anyone has any questions as she's presenting, if any kind of triggers any questions, please use the chat section to drop your questions, and then we can address that at the right time. But Raimah, I'll hand over to you now. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Femi. Thanks for that introduction. You can go to the next slide now. Okay, so I'm going to start off just talking a little bit about what CRM marketing actually is. So CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management, and it's really all about the strategies that you put in place to improve your revenue, profitability, and increase customer loyalty. But at heart of it, it means putting your customer first. CRM marketing is about the specific strategies that you put in place to get to know your customers on a more personal level. So it's about using data and insights you have to tailor your communications and your offers to your customers so that you can build long-lasting relationships with them. So CRM marketing spans across SMS, so text messages, social media marketing, and email marketing as well. So just to talk a bit about, the importance of CRM marketing. So a few months ago, I was in Ghana, and we had gone to the market with my mum to look for, African dresses. And whilst we were there, we found this woman that had amazing dresses. I bought one with the intention to go back, a couple of weeks later. My sister was coming down to Ghana, so we wanted to get some more. Now, when we went back a few, weeks later, they had actually cleared out that side of the market. So the woman was nowhere to be found. We tried to look into other areas, of the market, and we couldn't find her, right? So we ended up going to Makala Market instead. That the one we initially gone to was Medina. And, me and my sister spent a whole bunch of money, on these dresses. And I thought, if this woman had our contact details, she would have had an amazing weekend making lots of money from me and my sister, right? So, this is the importance really about, getting your customer data and building, that those relationships, with her and being proactive about that. So yeah, thanks, Bemi. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk in particular about email marketing. This survey was created by the Data and Marketing Association, and it shows just how important email marketing is across the customer journey. So from pre-purchase to customer service and, post-purchase and, giving additional benefits to your customer, you can see that email marketing comes out top across everything. You can also see that text messaging is also pretty high too. And I actually think that for the African market, text messages will probably feature much higher on the list, possibly, on par with email or just, below email. So yeah, this is just to show how important, email is. For $1 that you spend on email marketing, you get $42 back, if you're doing it correctly. So it's really important to actually invest, in email marketing tools to reach your customer on that more personal level. Thanks, Bemi. Next slide. So yeah, just to talk about why email marketing in a bit more detail. So the first one is about building lasting relationship, as I've mentioned. Think about the way that you build personal relationships. Think about someone that you've just met that you're interested in. You want to make an effort to communicate with them, right? With the idea that over time, if you have the same values, that you can build a lasting relationship with them. And the only way you do that is by getting to know them. Hence the term data is the new oil. But the thing with oil and the same with data is that it's only valuable if it is refined. It can't be used if it's just unrefined. If you don't know where data is, if you don't have the person that you like's number, how can you communicate with them, right? If you don't know what kind of memes they like, how can you send them funny memes? You're just not going to be able to communicate with them on a personal level. So for example, at Menufinder, we have a community that we ask questions to. We have a WhatsApp group. And we also run regular surveys, about to get information about our customers. And this really helps us to identify, information that we want and that we can use to enhance their experience, other apps. So for example, in one of our surveys, the answers were just around when we're talking about the restaurants that they want in the app. We realized that they were talking about restaurants that we already have on the app, right? So what does this mean? It meant that we were not communicating effectively enough about the restaurants that we have on the app. So what did we do? We looked at our push notifications, and we looked at the kind of messaging that we're putting out on social media, so we could really hone into that message about the kind of restaurants that we have on our app. The second one is boosting sales. So you're able to boost sales by being able to send targeted offers, to different segments of your audience. And I'll talk about segmentation a bit later on. But for example, if you have a selection of regular customers that are no longer buying from you, you can send them personalized offers to, entice them back in and get, more sales from them. The third one is about keeping top of mind, right? So we all know that we get so many messages now from different information. There's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's WhatsApp, hundreds of messages like each day. What email marketing does, right, is that it allows you to focus your message on a more personal level, because end of the day, if you're in someone's inbox, you're almost guaranteed to get a spot, in what they're thinking about. People check their emails regularly, even if for example, Facebook, Instagram is down, how are you going to get in touch with your customers if you only communicate with them via social media? And the final one is that it's affordable and scalable. So the great thing about email marketing is that it cuts across, like whether you're a small business or whether you're a large corporation, right? There are cheaper tools that you can use that are more cost effective, and there are also more expensive tools that you can use. But, it remains that you can reach thousands of customers, for just pennies per message. So what this means is that you can start small and then grow your efforts as your business expands. Next slide, please. So top tips for email marketing. So I'm just going to go through very quickly a few tips that you can have around email marketing. So the first one is around building a high quality subscriber base that gets key basic data, right? So you need to be able to build a subscriber list, you need to understand your audience and what they are interested in. For example, our audience at Menufinder, we know that they're foodies, right? They enjoy high quality food, and it's not just about the food, it's also about the experience around food. Like if you're a foodie, you know exactly what I'm saying, right? So if we tell them that you can win free food or get a discount at restaurants, they will sign up, right? Because they're going to be interested, they're going to want to know, they're going to want to get that, that freebie or whatever it is. So for somebody else, you may be a strategy consultant, you might be able to offer people a free ebook that offers a solution to a pain point that they have. So another point is, don't just settle for email address and name. If your offer is strong enough, you can get a phone number, you can get date of birth, use customer surveys to get additional information such as job, gender, location. All of this information is going to be able to help you to send more targeted communications. And then the final point is to be consistent and let your audience know how often you'll keep in contact, right? So you don't have to be sending emails every other day or every week. No, you can stick to, a schedule of once a month, once every 2 weeks. The point is that to keep some kind of consistency so that your audience know when they can expect to hear from you. And also keep your emails relevant as well. So, as a food company, we're not going to be sending emails about, fashion related things, but we might send emails about food events, right? So it's not necessarily directly related to the app, but we know that if our customers are foodies, they're going to be interested in events, right? So keep it relevant. The next one is automation, which I love. I think this is like one of the most amazing tools about email marketing, right? Because you're able to save time and boost revenue without really doing much. So for example, having a well-crafted welcome series. What is a welcome series? A welcome series is, 3 to 4 emails that you send when somebody signs up for your website or your newsletter, whatever it is. And research actually shows that you can increase revenue by 13% compared to if you send a single welcome email. So instead of just sending a thank you for joining our list, right? Craft 3 to 4 emails, right, which is very easy to do. I'll talk about that next. That gives a brand story, that gives your audience some more information about you, tells them more about what they can expect to get from your products, the benefits and all that kind of thing. And then another thing, around automation is that you can send birthday emails. So a great statistics is that birthday emails actually have a 481% higher transaction rate than promotional emails, right? So if you send somebody a discount, right, on their birthday, you're almost guaranteed to get a sale from them, right? And this is why you would need data such as, somebody's date of birth, so that you can trigger, an email for them, a couple of weeks before their birthday, and get them to spend some money on your product or service. The third point is around well-crafted emails. So with email tools such as MailChimp, Bravo, it's very, very easy to design a professional looking email. So actually half the work is done for you, right? Because, they have some great, design builds. You can input in your branding and automatically you have templates so you can automatically put those kind of things in. Aside from that as well, personalization is always great. People love to see their names in emails, right? We did a test at McDonald's that showed that in CTAs, when you put somebody's name in CTAs, they're much more likely to click on the CTA than if they don't have their name on them. Same thing with the subject line. If you see an email with your subject line, Raimah, are you interested in this? I'm like, interested in what? Like I've seen my name there. What does that mean? So I'm more likely to click on it. And then the fourth point is around segmentation. So what is segmentation? Segmentation is about basically being able to split your customers into different types of lists, depending on their characteristics. So as opposed to a one size fits all where you just send the one email to everybody, right? You can segment your list based on location, age, and interest, so that you can send them specific offers and specific communications that are going to resonate more with them. And this always leads to higher revenue when you're able to segment your list and send them those targeted types of offers in emails. So the final point is around test and learn, which I will talk about more in a couple of slides about test and learn. But essentially, test and learn is about developing a program for yourself where you can A/B test your emails to see what's more effective. And nowadays, the different email providers like MailChimp and Bravo actually have this built in. So you can A/B test subject lines, you can A/B test your pre-headers and design, and actually see what is more effective with your audience. Thanks, Bemi. Next slide. So I'm going to go through some case studies now. I'm going to give you an example of a smaller company, which is Menufinder Africa, and then also McDonald's, where I used to work previously, which is obviously a huge corporation. And I'm going to show you talk about how they were able to utilize email marketing in different ways, right? So for example, with Menufinder Africa, we were able to increase order rates through multi-channel CRM marketing optimization. A lot of buzzwords there, right? What does multi-channel mean? It simply means using different types of marketing. So email marketing, push notifications, and also social media, right? To increase our order rates. Now, what we find when we're able to combine email marketing with push and social media marketing, we saw an average of 20% increase in orders, right? Which is actually often higher when we do targeted ads, right? And, this is where you're able to target your ads based on the type of audience that you want to target, based on the communications, to ensure that the right message is going to the right people. Alex, our founder, often comments that, he noticed a difference, especially, when we're sending push notifications around certain brands. He can see that correlation, with the ops team in terms of the amount of orders that we're getting. So it shows you the power of being able to communicate effectively with your audience at the right time as well. So for example, are you sending communications around the end of the month when you know that your audience is getting paid, right? Because that they're more likely they're going to be thinking about, I've got money in the bank, not mid-month, when they're probably a bit maybe stretched and not thinking about shopping, right? So it's these little tweaks to do to think about when you're sending these communications. So survey results as well. So our survey results increased by 184% after optimizing and segmenting our list and creating an offer proposition. So just to put that in some numbers for you, in our first survey, we got about 60 responses. In the second one, we got just under 200 responses. What a difference. What a difference segmenting our list and creating an offer for that list led. And what this meant is that we had better first-party data. What is first-party data? First-party data is the data that you own, right? Not the data on Facebook, not the data on Instagram that they own, but the data that you own about your customers. And, as I mentioned earlier, if Instagram goes down, right, a lot of businesses are going to be struggling because they don't know anything about their customers. They don't have any information, right? So the point is that, yes, have a thriving, social media, grow your brand on social media, but make sure that you're converting this to a list that you can communicate and have a closer relationship with your customers, right? And just some other statistics, around our revenue. So revenue has increased over 100% in the last year as a result of our consistent marketing efforts. In the last 3 months, as another example, with Instagram account, engagement has increased by 67% and content interactions have increased by 62%. So that just shows you the power of crafting your social media based upon your audience preferences, looking at the insights and data and understanding what your audience actually likes. Thanks, Bemi. Next slide, please. So test and learn program. So obviously McDonald's is a huge organization. So, they were able to spend a lot of money, on this program, right? So test and learn program was something that I created and ran for McDonald's for 2 years. And it was for the My McDonald's app, which they had just launched, right? And it was around their email and app marketing. And so what they were trying to achieve is to, increase their guest counts through email marketing, and app marketing as well, in-app marketing based upon advanced analytics and segmentation of customer journeys. McDonald's had over 30 million subscribers on the email list, just to show you, how big we're talking. And in the first year, just from doing test and learn, right? So this is not talking about their other email marketing that they have that's already part of their, regular cadence on email. Just on this test and learn program, they were able to generate over 1.5 million pounds in a year. So here is an example, of a test that we ran. So what would usually happen is that we would run these tests. Once we get the insights from the test, we then put them into business as usual as well, so that we can harness the power of the test that we've done. So one of the hypothesis around this test was about targeting customers that are high risk of churn with personalized app offers. What does churn mean? So churn basically means customers that are not using the app, that look like they, are not interested, in ordering, from the McDonald's app, right? And so what we looked at is that if we could significantly increase the revenue by sending them a targeted offer, right, versus a no offer. And what we did is we tested different offer points. So we tested from 15% to 30%. And the reason behind that was, as well, is that we wanted to find a point, right, like a nice point where we weren't going too high and we weren't going too low, because you can be sending 30% when really all it takes is 20%, to get a customer to come back, right? So we split the audience into 4 test cells, and then we had a control of 10% of the audience. So the control was basically people that were in that audience that didn't get any comms, didn't get any offer. And we sent the different test cells, the different offers from 15%, 20%, 25%, and 30%. Now, the results of this test were that actually, as you were thought, the higher you go in terms of the amount of percentage off, the more customers came in. But actually, when we looked at the long tail results, right, which is the results that you can see over time, 25%, between 20 and 25% was a sweet spot in terms of getting a customer back in. So we were able to save the business money by not forcing them to offer 30%, when they could easily offer 25% to be able to get their customers, back in, right? So yeah, so this is an example, of how McDonald's did it. If you're a smaller company, you can do test and learn at a much smaller scale. You don't have to split audience up into, 4 different lists, but you can start off by testing testing, as I mentioned, things like subject lines, your design of your email, and then get on to, testing more things like offers as well. So yeah, thank you. That's it in terms of my presentation, Bemi.
Thank you so much, Raimah. That was fantastic. It's weird. Like even though I've seen the presentation before now, I was actually taking notes as you were going through it, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I like that. It's like so many different things. I've just been told that actually the chat function is not working. So I wonder if people have been trying to send messages into the chat. Well, thankfully, I have my questions that I'm going to ask. So I'm going to throw them at you, Raimah, just to get things started. So yeah, that's so unfortunate. I've been trying to see if I could tweak it and make it work, trying to work out if there's any other way we could get questions in, because I'm sure people will have loads of questions, lots of very insightful points that were made in that presentation there. So like I said, yeah, I was just gonna say people should throw their questions in. I feel like, yeah, that's like Zoom is working against us at this point. But like I said, I have a couple of questions that yeah, just based on the conversation and the presentation that you've had. Again, because we're talking in a specific African context, so I like to bring the conversation contact back home to the African context. So, do you have any tips on how businesses can tailor their or what they need to do to tailor their CRM strategies to align with like the realities of diverse African markets? Again, because it all sounds very great and wonderful, but context is very different in terms of okay, what do you need to do? Are there any kind of strategies you need to bear in mind in terms of tailoring your CRM to suit
Yeah.
African different African markets?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say is to build out your customer journey, right? Right from when your customers knows about your brand, right, to how you want them to go to purchase, and then the experience that they're going to have, afterwards, right? And that is going to look different for every single business, but you need to build out that journey so you know exactly what types of communications you want to send at different points in that customer journey, right? The
Okay.
second thing is to understand your audience by building out audience personas. And audience persona is literally thinking about what does your customer like? What are your customers' pain points, right? What are potential solutions for your customers, right? Understand your audience in a very personal way, as if this is a friend that you're talking to, right? Understand, okay, what kind of job does your typical your ideal customer have, right? Do they work from home, or do they have to commute into the office, right? Where do they like to go on holiday? Think about these things, because these are the kind of things that are going to actually allow you to be more personal in your communications with them. The other point is to do an audit of your current customer data, right, and of your email marketing. And even if you haven't started doing email marketing yet, you can still do an audit, because you can actually look at what are your competitors doing, right? There's a site that I have. It's called reallygoodemails.com. It's a free website that you can sign up, and it literally gives you access to hundreds and thousands of email templates from other brands, right? So, you can, do audit around email marketing in terms of your competitors, but also what do you want to be able to do in your own email marketing? What kind of message do you want to convey? The other thing is that if you are, if you do have, a website, an app, and, anything online, make sure you have things like Google Analytics. These are, kind of basic things, that you should have. And because that is going to give you contextual data, such as where are your customers, what kind of devices, are they using? What are the current weather conditions, time of day? This can be tracked using Google Analytics. Google Analytics can tell you the times in which people are accessing, your website, accessing your app, and things like that, right? And then another thing as well is to understand or look at the different types of data points that you have. So, for example, behavioral data. If you're running Facebook ads, then you should have a Facebook pixel on your website. Facebook pixel allows you to track behavior on your website, all with your email, from your email campaigns to your website as well. So so I think for the African context, it's really about understanding your customers, and using these different, strategies around building out the customer journey and understanding your audience so that you know how to communicate to them, because it's going to look different for every type of business.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Going again, the questions are starting to come in, and also I've just worked out that the Q&A section is working. So if you have any questions, please put them in there. There's already one question in there that I'm gonna sort of throw at you, Raimah, just to get things going. But yeah, if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to type them away in the Q&A section. So but the question is about the example. So the person says, love the examples. Would you say the same applies in B2B context, and which tactics work better in B2B?
Yeah. So it is exactly the same, but as I said, it needs to be personalized to the business, right? And so, for example, actually, right, so I worked at an advertising technology platform, and that was a B2B organization, right? And we were able to grow their list significantly, over a year, right? And how did we do that, right? Through our newsletter, is that we released different types of content that we knew that our audience would be interested in. So, for example, we created a white paper around Facebook, the Facebook privacy issues that were going on at the time. And what happened? This Facebook white paper, the email that it was in, got forwarded to other businesses, right? So again, it's about understanding your audience, the other businesses, the businesses that you're targeting, and thinking about what are the pain points, right? And what solutions are you offering them to your pain points, right? Whether it's a person, or it's a business, right? It's kind of the same in the sense that people are really interested in themselves, not interested in them, especially you, right? So whatever you're offering needs to be aligned, with what they want, right? With what the business wants. How are you helping that business to, reach their, quarterly target? What are you doing to reduce their costs? And how can you convey that through email marketing and through the content that you produce for those customers?
Interesting. Sounds really good. Questions are coming in, which is really good, which is good. I like it. There's another question in there. I have one or two more questions. So after everyone's questions are done, I have my own questions I want to get through. But I'll prioritize the audience questions first. This question is about, so say I do wonder how this could be applied. I think you touched on this slightly in your previous answer. You wonder how this could be applied to a business like an insurance brokerage. So
Okay.
very
Yeah.
interesting question. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? I've actually got a good example of insurance brokerage, because I recently saw an ad on Facebook about life insurance, and the ad was like, women that are like 33, and basically calling out the age gap that I'm in, and I'm like, wow, these people have created a targeted ad. They've made sure that this ad speaks to me directly, and they talked about, kids, leaving their kids behind and all of this kind of stuff. And so it means what they have done, right, is they've created their audience on Facebook, right, that are targeting women in their 30s that look like they may have kids, right? Or, they're at a certain stage in their life, right? So again, if you're insurance brokerage, it's about understanding, the products that you have and how they can be applied to your customer. Because instantly the ad spoke to me, and I clicked on it and I went to look at, what they're offering, because it was aligned, with the age bracket that I'm in, and my own personal circumstances. So yeah, I think it's really about tailoring it to knowing, who your customer is, right? So building out your audience persona, and that journey, and then being able to target the communications, to them, in a smart way that gets them to think, oh, okay, this applies to me, so I'm going to click on this.
Interesting. That sounds really good. It kind of leads me interesting. That kind of leads me on to my question that I was going to ask, and the question is really about data. I think from everything you've discussed, it seems like everything hinges on the data you collect, right?
Yeah.
And so there are two parts of the question. So the first part is, how do you make sure that you are collecting, how do you improve your data collection process in a way? Because if you don't, you can't really use data you don't have, right?
Yeah.
So any tips for how to make sure you're collecting useful data? And then the flip of that question is best practice around collecting and managing customer data. As I know that's a very sensitive topic around
Yeah.
data protection and data privacy rights and things like that. So the first one is how do you, like, tips for collecting good data, and then best practice for managing that data ethically.
Okay. So the first part is that, look, if you're targeting the right people with the right message, they're going to join your list,
Mm,
right? So you need to understand what it is that you're offering and what are your audience getting out of it, and how can you communicate that effectively,
mm,
right? One of the first websites that I had was a mental health website, right? And it was all about, African women's mental health. The landing page that I created, instantly started getting in email subscribers. Why? Because I had, look, all this content around African women's mental health, right? I had created, a few ads and a social media page around it. And as soon as you got on the website, there was a pop-up that said, want to improve your mental health, subscribe to our newsletter for tips from qualified therapists across Africa,
mm,
right?
mm,
Directly related to, what these people are interested in. People are not gonna join your email list, right, if it's not relevant to them. So
mm,
that's why
mm,
it's important to understand who your audience is and then make sure that it's communicated effectively. Because actually, I could have had a pop up that said something completely different and that wouldn't draw people in. And I'm sure some people didn't, join the list as well, right? Not everybody is going to join.
mm,
But the
mm,
point is you marry up, your what you're offering, right, to what the customer needs to get them to join your list. A second part of that is around offers. So if you're a product or service-based business, the easiest way to get people on your email list is to offer a discount. I think nearly all businesses, in the West do this, where 10% discount, sign up to our newsletter. And then what they also do is they'll say, get an extra 5% if you give us your phone number, right? Because they want to
mm,
do some
mm,
text,
mm, mm,
text
mm,
marketing review, right? And that instantly, if you're going to save, another, 15, 20%, of course you're going to join, if you're
mm,
interested in buying the
mm,
product, right? So yeah, if you're a product-based business, service-based business, offering a discount is kind of an easy way to be able to get people to join your list. Second part of the question, around best practices, right? So I think in Africa, it's around 35 or 36 countries in Africa currently have, some kind of legislation around data privacy and all that kind of stuff. Um, I mean, it's not the same as like the EU, where it's like a standard GDPR, right?
mm,
But they all have kind of similar like themes around them. Now, the first thing when it comes to any kind of data is make sure that you're obtaining clear consent. Make sure you have explicit informed consent from customers before collecting their personal data, right? And the content should be freely given and easily withdrawn. So if they
mm,
don't want you to hold their data, here in the UK, you can request for your data, which I've done before, right? Companies get very scared about that because they know that they're going to get in trouble if they don't give you their data.
mm,
And also I can ask to be taken off a list, right? Because it's my data, right?
mm, mm,
um the other thing as well is being, only collecting data that is necessary and relevant for your business purposes, and this looks different for every business, but make sure that it's relevant. The other thing is having strong security measures, right? So, this is a big one. You hear all the time about data leaks and all that kind of thing.
mm,
Make sure that, you're using encryption, limiting access controls, and, other technical safeguards to protect customer data. And really, for this, you're probably going to need to speak to a specialist, a data privacy specialist on this, but they can help you to ensure that you don't have unauthorized access or breaches as well. The final thing I would say is around training employees around handling customer data. So, make sure that your employees, any employees that are handling customer data, understand the regulations and best practices. at the technology company that I work in, for example, I need to get special sign-off to access certain data, just because of the security measures. And sometimes actually, some companies, they limit, who can actually have access to the data. If you're not part of the project, then why do you need access to this data? Right. So yeah, you put in things like that to ensure, that you're not breaching any regulations around privacy.
Excellent. Thanks. That's very, very useful. There's still room for more questions. I have one final question. So if anyone has any more questions, please use the Q&A box. But I'll ask my final question now. And it's really, you touched on the Facebook ad that caught your eye, and how that sort of shows how like the company that targeted you with that data was they ran. It was like they're doing everything you've kind of discussed doing and here. So the real question is again, how can businesses like effectively integrate CRM with like other marketing channels like social media, mobile marketing, all those kind of things? Like how do you do that properly? Like to make sure that everything is kind of talking to each other and working in the same direction.
Yeah. So you really want to think about the kind of messaging that you want to convey across these different platforms, right? You want to align your messaging across your social media ads, push, text message, email, marketing as well. And this thing around your customer journey, the touch points that you're going to have with customers, think about what you want them to get from your social media, what you want them to get from a text message, and what you want them to get from your email marketing, right? So for example, at Menufinder Africa, like our value is around, only dealing with high quality restaurants. We actually you're only able to get on the app, if we've tried and tested your food. So we don't just bring on everyone, right? And how do we convey this? We convey this through our social media. You'll go on our social media and you'll see that there's a lot of content, around the food that we have on the apps. There's a lot of content around the best places to go, and reviews as well. And what is this saying to the customer? This is saying that we're a company that only like high quality and premium food, right? Same thing that if you go if you're on our email list, you'll notice that same theme runs throughout as well. So even though we may be saying different things across the email, our values are the same across the whole spectrum. We have a WhatsApp community group as well, where we gain insights from, and where we want to be able to, give people special offers and things like that. And even there as well, the thread is the same. We want to improve our service to you. How can we do this? What do you guys want, right? So I would say that when it comes to social media, you're really, again, the name of the game is customer journey and audience, understanding your audience, and then making sure that you have consistent messaging across these different touch points, right? So that it means, so for example, if you're running Facebook ads, like the example I gave, they targeted it because they knew who their audience was, right? So they were able to craft content that directly, spoke to the audience in question.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Like I said, I saw the presentation before we went live, and as you were speaking, I was kind of taking notes. One of the things that really caught my eye was the stats on the impact of personalized birthday messages and how that increases like transaction rates by like 481%. That's significant. Like
Exactly.
I knew there was some sense to it, because all of a sudden thinking about it, like pretty much every company that subscribes to their kind of mailing list, I get or like on my birthday, like I get like a deluge of birthday messages, which again works. So yeah, makes a lot of sense. But yeah, thank you so much. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up? I think it's been a wonderful session. I've certainly learned a lot. I'm sure everyone kind of listening in has learned a lot as well. But any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
My closing thought is to just be really intentional about your marketing efforts and about your email marketing efforts as well. And don't feel overwhelmed by what you think, is a really big task. I've tried to, explain throughout that, email marketing can actually be, very simple because there are a lot of tools that can support you, when you're starting out. It's not something that you need to have a lot of money for. It's something that you can start on a really small scale, right? So, for example, MailChimp and Brevo are email and marketing tools that you can use that are good for small businesses as well. And so, if you're someone that's like, oh my gosh, what is this CRM marketing? Start small, start where you are. You don't have to do everything at once, right? But what you do have to do is be consistent, right? And then, yeah, I mean, if anybody would like access to a free email auditing template, you can email me at Raimah@menufinderafrica.com, and I can send you a free email template that you can use to kind of look at your strategy and give you some prompts to think about how you want to start off your email marketing journey.
Excellent, excellent. One more question is coming actually, so we'll address that question and then we'll wrap up. So the email address is Raimah@menufinderafrica.com. So please feel free to reach out to Raimah directly and you can pick up the conversation from there. But one final question, I think it's a very good question, I think we should pick up. So the question is, are we seeing a shift away from emails as younger generations come through with their different behaviors? Or are the younger generations, the Gen Zs and so on, are our emails working for them the same way it's working for, let's say, our generation?
Yeah, you see, the thing about email, right, is that it's interesting because they said this about our generation, right? My generation, if you're in your 30s, right? You
I
think that and older, every
just
generation, every generation thinks, oh, email marketing, like that sounds, kind of like old school, right? But the fact of the matter is that how do you communicate with any business now? It's through email.
mm,
Even if they have a TikTok, an Instagram, even if they have a phone number, even if they have a website, the main way that people communicate is through email because, even for example, sending letters, right? Not every business is going to be able to be sending you letters. People don't want, you're not going to give out your personal home address to every business, right? So the easiest way to communicate with people is through email. If you're Gen Z, whether whether you're a freelancer or you have like a normal job, how are you getting contracts? How are you keeping up to date with companies and business? It's all through emails. So
mm,
actually, email, has been one of those things that has stayed the course in terms of communicating effectively with audience, regardless of what generation it is.
excellent. Thank you. That's a great answer. Once again, thank you so much, Raimah. It's been a wonderful, wonderful session. I certainly learned a lot. I'm sure the audience learned a lot as well. Thanks again for joining us today. Raimah gave her email address is Raimah@menufinderafrica.com. Please feel free to reach out directly to her if you have any questions or if you want to pick her brains on anything. And if you want to reach out to either myself or Joanna from Dimax, our email addresses are on the screen, or you can reach out to us via the Africa MarCom Series LinkedIn page and so on like that. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. It has certainly been a wonderful session. Like I said, we have more sessions planned in the works that we'll be updating you on as we go along. But yeah, thanks again to everyone for joining the session, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Remy.
Thanks, Raimah. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.